is up, BYG family? Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for tuning into this video. This video is the second part in our series, Free People. So if you did not see the first part from last week, make sure to go check that out before you watch this one. But yes, we're continuing our series tonight talking about free people, how when it comes to the rules and authority, actually listening to God and His laws actually sets us free. You know, last year I was given the privilege to be able to go hang out with one of my buddies from college. One of my friends from college, Adam, great friend. He's having a baby soon, and I'm very excited for him for that, to be the first one of our friend group to become a father. So I'm glad I was able to get out there and hang out with him. And when we were out there, he asked me if I wanted to go hiking. And I like to go hiking. I haven't gone on a lot of hikes before. I've done some walks around parks around here that are nice, but they're not actual like hiking, I would say. Maybe it's a lower intensity of hiking, right? But I was gonna go hiking with him, so we're in Arkansas, and we drive for about an hour, it feels like. We get to some place and we're like up in the mountains, okay? At least to me they were mountains. They may not have been, I don't know. But it was just beautiful area, and it was a beautiful day. The sun was shining through the leaves. It was clear skies. There was all these beautiful rock formations. There was this weird like land bridge thing at one point. This like thing called the grotto that was natural. That it was formed in the earth. It was really cool. And one part of the hike when we were out there, we get to this moment where it was so quiet. Like I had not experienced quiet like that. Maybe ever. It had been a long time if I ever had. It was just so quiet and the silence. And at first I started freaking out. I was like, the anxiety kind of spiked up in me. But then it just, this calm rushed over me. It's like my brain was happy to relax and just be in that silence. And it was so beautiful, it was so amazing. And hiking, to me, right at that point, I was like, man, this is awesome. And I would love to be able to do this all the time. I need to go soon on another hiking trip and just get into that silence, get into nature, and just be relaxed and be at peace with creation, right? And hiking can be relaxing, but it also can get really intense. And some of you may be experienced hikers and you know what I'm talking about. It's like if you go to Colorado, there's these things they call 14ers, meaning they're mountain peaks that are 14,000 feet above sea level. There's two that are popular called Maroon Bells, okay? Those are really popular. And they're very intense because, one, it's 12 miles round trip. It's 7 hours long to do the hike. Apparently it has this thing called high exposure, meaning there's a big chance of falling and getting injured. And at some point, the trail just ends and you gotta make it up as you have to figure it out for yourself how to get there. There's not always a trail leading you. So that just seems crazy. That's intense. That hiking seems very intense. And it's very intense, and oftentimes people fall and get hurt all the time on these types of trails. And the main reason they fall and get hurt is because they stop following the safety guidelines, right? They may get comfortable out there, and they might start taking a few more risks than normal because, hey, we've been out here for a couple hours, it's easy. And so they let their guards down, they quit following all the safety guidelines. Maybe they get a little close to the edge and they fall and get hurt. All because they kind of threw caution to the wind. And we're thinking, how close can I get to the edge before I fall? And when it comes to us, with authority, with rules, we're very much like these hikers, where we're thinking, how close can I get to the edge before there's a problem, before I fall? How far is too far? How close can I get to the fire before I get burned? I don't know if you ever heard of the urban myth about boiling a frog in a pot of water. I know, really weird. But apparently, if you have a pot of boiling water, if you throw the frog in it, it'll hop out because it's hot. But apparently, if you put it in a pot of, cool water, right? Cold, or room temp where it's not hot, and then you turn up the heat. And as the heat slowly, as the water becomes hotter and hotter and it starts to boil, the frog will not leap out and it will boil to death. That's kind of how we are sometimes with the rules, is we like to bend them as much as we can and just, easily get close as we can to breaking the rule. But before we know it, we've gotten ourselves in a whole big mess. It could be with obeying your parents, right? You might be like, well, these few rules they tell me about aren't really that big of a deal. They don't really care, so I'll disobey them here. But that becomes a practice, and then I become very disobedient to where our relationship is very messed up. Could be dating, right? You're thinking, how far is too far? My boyfriend and girlfriend, and then before we know it, we're in a big mess of trouble and hurting that relationship as well. Could be with gossip. You're like, well, I'm only telling so-and-so. It's just so-and-so. It's my one really best friend. They're not going to tell anybody. Or I didn't tell the whole story to everybody, just told a little part, right? And so when we leave with that question of how far is too far, right? Or how much bad is too much bad, that's when we can easily be like the frog. And before we know it, we boil to death. Before we know it, we've gotten too close to the fire and we are burned. And it's all because we're asking that wrong question of how far is too far. Last week I introduced you to a guy named James. I didn't bring him on. I actually told you about a guy named James who grew up in a Jewish family and who was the brother of Jesus. And after, he started believing that Jesus was the Messiah and he was telling people about him, he became a big leader in the church in Jerusalem. He even had a nickname. They called him James the Just. James the Just. Imagine you had a nickname. You were like, Dylan the Just. I don't know. I don't deserve that nickname, I don't believe. But he was called James the Just, and the reason why he was called that is because he always kind of knew what the right thing to do was in the current moment. He was always making sure to do the right thing, the thing that honored God, regardless of the situation, regardless of the consequence that might fall on him. And so remember last week we talked about how God gives us the law of love, and that rule of love is actually a key that sets us free, not like a rule that puts us in a cage. And so when it came to him explaining to people the law of love, a lot of people had questions. Because remember, this is the first time they were following Jesus, right? This was the first group of people to really be the church, so they were trying to figure a lot of things out. And they're not like us who have the privilege of hindsight, the privilege of thousands of years of people following Christ and giving us the advice on how to do that. They were trying to figure it out for the first time. So James wrote a letter to help people understand how to follow the law of love, which is to love God, to love others as you love yourself. And in that letter, he didn't list 1,000 rules. He gave advice on how to follow the main rule, the rule that sets us free, the rule of love. And one thing he said in there that will help you to do this, he says, is that you need wisdom. He said in verse 5, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. But when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. Such people should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything they do. James here says, listen, you need wisdom. You need wisdom. And if you're getting that wisdom, make sure that you actually do want the wisdom from God. Not that you're just saying, I feel like I have to, and I really just want to do what I want to do. But you're fully serving God, and you need wisdom to follow the law of love. Well, what is wisdom exactly, right? You got to make sure we understand what I'm talking about when I say wisdom. It's that ability to discern. The ability to figure out what is right and what is wrong. And not just knowing, because listen, a lot of people know what is right and wrong. It's not just knowing what is right or wrong, but doing the thing that is right and staying away from the thing that is wrong. That's wisdom. That ability to know what's right and wrong and then doing what is right. And so we need that wisdom if we're trying to follow this law of love, because without it, we're not going to be able to figure out where the danger is and what we're doing, right? We're not going to be able to see the danger, that we're in the danger zone and close to falling off the edge without wisdom. And so you're like, well, how do I get this wisdom, right? Because when I think of wisdom, I usually think of an old person. Somebody who's experienced a lot of life. I think of an old Asian man, and that's typically what entertainment has made us think of the wise man, right? How do I get wisdom as a teenager? How do I get wisdom as a young person, right? Well, James here says what you need to do is ask. You need to ask your generous God for wisdom. You're like, okay, so if I ask God for wisdom, is he going to like just whisper it in the wind to me? Like, do this. No, he's not. He's not going to, maybe he will. I'm not saying he can't. He for sure can. And I'm not saying that people don't hear things from God, but I'm saying he might give you the wisdom differently than just whispering it to you in the wind. Usually, it can be through a multitude of things. It could be from the people in our lives. Maybe God has been trying to speak to us through our parents, but we haven't been listening. Or maybe through our friends who keep telling us, hey, you sure you should be doing that? You sure it's a great idea? Maybe God has been trying to tell us things through the people around us. He might have us go through certain experiences, and through those experiences give us wisdom for the future. He gives us history where we can look back at how people have followed him. We can look back throughout all time and see, how people have made decisions and the consequences of those decisions. He also gives us scripture, right? God for sure speaks to us through scripture. There's a whole book. There's the three books in the wisdom literature in the Bible, and there's one called the book of Proverbs that's all about wisdom, right? All about wise things to do. It's about the wise person and the foolish person. And one psalm that I think I want to bring up today is we talk about, we're getting in trouble because we're asking the question, how far is too far? And Psalm 27 and verse 12 says that a wise person foresees danger and takes precautions. But a foolish person continues to go on blindly and deals with the consequences. That a wise person sees danger ahead and gets and dodges it, gets away from it. Either gets ready for it to fight it or just flees from it. And a foolish person is like, I see the danger, but who cares? They keep going on and they end up hurting themselves or others and dealing with the consequences. A wise person knows to stay away from certain situations. They know that, hey, this situation might go bad and I might get into some big trouble here that I don't want to get into, and I need to stay away from this situation. A wise person might see that, hey, this relationship that I'm in is becoming toxic. A wise person says, hey, this person that I'm with is a bad influence, and I need to lessen the time with them. They are able to see certain actions that they might do will cause regret. And they not only see it, but they actually avoid it. They do something about it. The foolish person, they might see it. They might see it and they'll ignore it. They'll ignore all the warnings, and all of a sudden they've hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. They carry this regret for years, and they damage the relationships around them, right? The people that they care about, all because they either didn't see the warning signs or they ignored them. And so it's important that we gain wisdom, and it's important that we quit asking this question, how far is too far? We need to ask a new question. Instead of saying, how far is too far, we need to ask, what is the wise thing to do? When I look at, maybe I have the story about so-and-so, and I could tell this person that I'm friends with, I could tell them all about what so-and-so did, but what is the wise thing to do? Or maybe, it's my parents told me to do this, and I really don't like what they said about it. I want to do it anyway, but what is the wise thing to do? When I'm with my boyfriend or girlfriend, what is the wise thing that I need to do here? We need to stop trying to look at the rules and think, how close can I get to breaking them before they're broken? We need to stop thinking, how close can I get to danger before I am actually in danger, right? And instead, we need to start saying, well, how can I make sure I keep a safe distance from danger? How can I make sure I keep a safe distance away from danger? How can I make sure I put up boundaries so I don't get close to the fire? I make sure I stay a safe distance, and I have things that will stop me before I get there. I'm saying I'm not going to cross this point. You see, people who are free live in wisdom, because the foolish person is not living in freedom. The foolish person is living with trouble, with regret, and regret is a cage. Bad decisions are like a cage. But a free person lives in wisdom and stays clear of danger. A free person does not dance around with danger, all right? They don't play around with danger. They don't play with the fire because they know they're going to get burned. All right? The water's getting warm. They don't say, oh, this is a nice day. Like, oh, whoa, this might be a bad thing. I talked about hiking earlier, and one thing I feel like everybody, really enjoys seeing if they have saw it or really wants to see one day is the Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon, this beautiful canyon in the earth that would just be amazing to see. I would love to see it one day. People say it's breathtaking. They say it's just like amazing, and it brings praise to God from you. His creation is something so beautiful. But a lot of area around the Grand Canyon has guardrails. And some people don't like it because they say it takes away from the beauty of the Grand Canyon, but they have to put those up there because every year, around 3 to 4 people fall into the Grand Canyon and die. Because I guess maybe they want to take the great picture and they try to get as close to the edge as they can, thinking, it's not that much danger, but they get close as they can, and then all of a sudden they slip up and they fall. And it happens to 3 to 4 people every year. You think it would be easy, like, humans would know, like, hey, don't get close to that edge. But you see, sometimes we need a boundary. Sometimes we need a guardrail in place to say, hey, don't get that close. Something to stop us from getting into that danger. And so wise people know that they need to keep boundaries in their lives. And they put those things up. They respect those boundaries when they put them there. I don't know tonight what the Spirit may have revealed to you that in your life you have been getting a little too close to danger in. I don't know, maybe it's like, hey, that boundary that you put in your life, it's a good thing it's there, and you need to make sure you're strengthening that boundary. I don't know what it is, but it could be that maybe you need to turn your phone off at a certain time at night. Maybe a certain time of the night you're saying, okay, I need to get off the computer. Because after so-and-so time, nothing good happens. Could be that you're thinking a good boundary would be that I need to wait a little longer before I start dating because I'm not ready. Could be that I need to spend less time with so-and-so, with this person who has not been a great influence on me. Could be that I need to give up doing something. Every time I'm doing this activity, it leads to this, and I need to give that up. Maybe it's not something I need to give up, but something that I need to put in my life. Maybe it's someone I need to invite into my life and tell them what's going on so they can help me. They can help make sure I keep this boundary up and keep away from this danger zone. I don't know what boundary you need to put in your life, but I know that we all need boundaries. And I know that free people, wise people, have boundaries and stay away from the danger zones. And so if you want to live free and to live as God has meant for you to live, then you need to stop asking how far is too far. And you need to ask, what is the wise thing to do? And you need to put boundaries in your life to keep you away from these danger zones. Guys, I hope this message was beneficial to you. Remember that God loves you, I love you, and there is nothing you can do that would change that. You guys have a great day.